Hero's Shadow by Feeling Stabby. Chapter 5. Actions Speak Louder. There is no notes for this one, so hope you enjoy. Read to you by Spirits, Don't Cry. Or just Spirit, I guess. Now that he's thinking about it, Izuku has never been to Tony's Pizzeria this early. It's around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, an hour or so before Kacchan gets out of school. He doesn't know why he's keeping tabs on his friend all of a sudden, but the bully's words are still ringing in his ears, and he wants to make sure Kacchan is alright, even though he knows he most definitely is. The explosive teen won't let anything get him down, a trait that Izuku both envies and hates at the same time. Izuku usually only goes to Tony's in the evening, when it's already dark outside, and he's about to go on patrol or head home. But since he was passing by, he figured it was time to break that cycle. While he waits for his order of 1 Dr. Pepper and a side of breadsticks, Izuku pulls out his damaged notebook, along with a brand new one he just bought at the department store after getting the supplies to fix his costume. It comes with 2 pens and some sticky notes, making it perfect for his analysis. And what makes it even better is that it was only a few dollars. The manager had given him a discount since he apparently has a surplus of them in storage. Izuku thinks it might also be because he looks a little homeless, but that's besides the point. He opens both notebooks and sets them beside each other, comparing the pages. It's safe to say that his original journal is destroyed beyond repair. The paper has dried pretty much completely, leaving streaks of black and red ink from where he'd written notes and stuff. He can read a little bit of it, as the puddle had only been so deep, but his sketches are mostly ruined, along with his analysis on the more recent pro-heroes and villains. It's a good thing he doesn't care much about those. He's already memorized everything in those sections after all. Every time he studies a new person or group, the information gets lodged inside his brain. It's more like common knowledge to him now. The only thing he's worried about is the notes he'd taken on himself, or more specifically, on his quirks. He's still adding on to those sections little by little, sometimes every day and sometimes every other day. Just depends on his findings. The thing about his quirks is that he doesn't know everything about them yet, so he still has to have a baseline down for them in his notebook. He could add on to them easily that way. That's why he's prioritizing copying those sections over from his old journal to his new one rather than his other less important stuff. He titles the notebook number 15-2 in honor of its original and doesn't waste any time in transferring the information. The only good thing about this is that he now has the chance to sort through his scribbled notes and make a more detailed, neater version. He uncaps his blue ballpoint pen and gets to work, humming under his breath. Property of Midoriya Izuku. If found, please return to the nearest police station. That's all he's going to write on the first page. It's not like he's going to put down his phone number or address. What address? He thinks sourly. The abandoned building he's taken claim to. Izuku has a criminal record, albeit not a violent one, so if he loses it and it gets turned into a police station, it'll most likely come back around to Tsukachi. The detective will hold it for him. At least, Izuku thinks he will. He makes sure to write in code in case someone gets their hands on it and plans to use this information against him. Other than that, it takes a relatively small amount of time for him to get through the different sections. Ms. Hanako brings him his Dr. Pepper sometime in the middle of his furious jotting, and she doesn't look the least bit surprised at the cat band-aid on his forehead. She has the good sense not to mention it, and Izuku makes a mental note to give her a good tip. He'll just have to run fast so she doesn't try to give it back. Speaking of, how much money does he have left? He might just have to cash in his checks later on at the club. But that's a matter for later. Izuku is enjoying his soda and finishing his writing. The pen is smooth when he drags it on the paper, so he's having a little more fun than he probably should be. Extract. Main. Requires both hands to activate. Skin-to-skin contact only. Not a copy quirk. Effects are permanent. Cannot give back or away. Mutation of parent's quirk. Could one steal the other? If so, would it superimpose on itself? We'll add on this later. Cons. Painful on both sides. Immoral. Pros. Could save a person dying due to own quirk. Only use on villains as a last resort. A little bare for his liking, but it's only a rough outline for now. He makes sure to leave a lot of room between sections. Force. Exactly how it sounds. Forced quirk activation. Requires only one hand on skin. Can touch them briefly for it to work. No need to hold hand there. Can be used on 2 at once, since it only needs one hand for each person. After that, can attack others. Cannot control input or output. Pushes victims to the limit, sometimes to point of exhaustion or fainting. Cons. Painful to use. Uses a lot of energy. Pros. Quick way to get someone out of the fight. Deflect. For lack of better terminology, a transparent shield. Could be better described as invisible glass. Seems to shatter around 350 pounds of force or pressure. Activated when arms are crossed in an X shape. Must be held there. Cons. Limited time to hold it. Max time is 7 seconds. Will cause bloody nose and chronic migraines. Pros. Good for defensive measures and blocking projectile attacks. Izuku hasn't trained with this quirk a lot. He's used it before as Rabbit, but only briefly and when it was dark so that no one could really see it. It was more of an instinctive thing than anything. If he trains more with it, the boy is sure he'll be able to increase the time limit. Boost. Basic enhancements. Provides incredible supply of energy, allowing increased strength, stamina, speed, and hearing. Perhaps sight. Will need to conduct a test. Used on the daily, almost always active. Cons. Higher metabolism means normal medicine doses will need to be tripled, along with food consumption. Pros. Useful in nearly all situations, offensive and defensive, and also for escape. He's starting on the last section when Miss Hanako comes back over and places 2 orders of breadsticks on the table.
Sorry for the wait, dearie. Okyu burnt the first batch, which should frankly be impossible with the setup we have back there. He managed to do it, though, so here's an extra bag.
Izuku dips his head at her and thanks, suddenly struck with that same uncomfortable warm feeling he gets in his chest when people are being kind to him. I appreciate it. Today's been rough. The older lady nods, putting her hands on her hips.
Got a new journal, huh?
Yeah, I kinda ruined the first one, but I don't mind. She looks like she doesn't believe him, but instead of calling him out on it, she pats him twice on the head and walks away.
If you need me, just holler.
He munches on the breadsticks, sprinkling them with an ungodly amount of Parmesan cheese and dipping them in marinara as he continues his work. Pull. Weak form of telekinesis. Allows objects to be pulled towards me as long as nothing is blocking its way. To activate, hold out one palm. Have the object in sight and imagine an invisible string attaching to it. Can control how much force, speed to pull at. However, it requires more concentration. Cons. Can only pull at a max of 300 pounds. Pros. Beneficial in both long-range and close-range attacks. Now that he's finished with those sections, he can throw away his old notebook since he has no use for the old information. He can start anew with different theories and such in this one. He makes sure to throw a few extra bills on the table before leaving, calling out a goodbye to Miss Hanako and the only other person working. He's not full by any means, but at least the breadsticks will make sure he's not starving. Izuku has a few choices. He can go home and get his dirty clothes to go to the nearest laundromat, or he can go home and get his rabbit costume to get an early start on his patrol. He's a little calmer than before thanks to the food and the easy note-taking, so either of those options would suffice. He might as well do the cleaning today. The air is cool outside. It may be afternoon, close to evening, but it's not nearly as hot as it could be. The streets are bustling with people, some of them in suits and some of them in casual clothing. Izuku spots a few heroes in the crowds too. They look like they're off duty. He'll go by the house, drop off his stuff from the stores, and get his laundry to go out again and clean it. People give him strange looks as he weaves through the crowds, but it doesn't really make him upset. Again, he's used to it. It is kind of annoying, but what can you do about it? Izuku pulls out his notebook and writes little stuff down along the way. He passes by a few undercover cops and heroes, which serves as a perfect practice for him to try and get out a quick analysis on people before they can disappear. It's more of a hobby now, more than anything. Come to think of it, his note-taking is kind of stalkerish. He decides to go down the tunnel he takes sometimes on his way to his building. It offers him more privacy than the streets usually do, and it also helps Izuku with getting more ideas for weapons and support gear. The bridge is quiet around this time. No cars or people passing by. It's nice. And this is where Izuku makes mistake number 1. He lets his guard down. He's so focused on sketching a prototype of a bow staff that doubles as a katana that he doesn't hear what's going on behind him until it's too late. There is a shift in the air, and a squelching noise is heard a few yards back. Izuku whips around, only to freeze in his tracks at the sight before him. A large, slimy creature is crawling out of the sewer hole, seemingly manifesting more of its sludge out of thin air. That must be a quirk. Izuku thinks quickly, which means this is a villain. His thinking is proven correct as a face appears in the middle of the sludge, along with sharp, jagged teeth that sends shivers down Izuku's spine.
It'll make the perfect skin suit we're made of hiding, kid.
The creature grounds out, voice watery and dark. And the next moment happens, too fast for Izuku to truly process. He just barely manages to dodge out of the way when the sludge makes a swipe at him. He doesn't get a chance to breathe, though, as sludge shoots from the body and wraps around him quicker than lightning. He's being pulled in before he can do anything about it, quickly being enveloped by hole by the green and brown slime. His notebook and bag full of supplies flies out of his hand, landing somewhere out of view. What in the ass is happening right now? Oh, fuck. Izuku feels like he's floating. His body is being held up by the disgusting sludge, and it slides down his throat like cold lava. He gags, his lungs trying to draw in air, but it's no use. It clogs his ears and nose, cutting off his senses. He feels like he's drowning, but it's weird because he's also flying. Izuku can barely hear what the villain is gloating about now. Something about how he has to leave soon, how he hadn't expected him to be in town. The boy wishes he could ask who he is. He's choking, and it's slow and weightless, but his lungs burn so badly that he feels like he's dying, and for a moment, he wants to close his eyes. He wants to give up. He suddenly remembers what that bully said to him before fleeing out of the alley, and everything seems to hurt 10 times worse. Surely there's a reason the boy said what he did, a reason for why he brought something from their elementary school days back up. But Izuku can't really think of one with the way his brain is reacting in this situation. Izuku is trying his best to move around and struggle enough for the villain to let him go, but he's completely surrounded. It's not warm and comforting and safe like you'd think slime would be. It's cold and scary, and it hurts, just like the words the bully spewed at him. He mustered up a bit of strength, calling on all his quirks to do something, anything against the goose. Suffocating black dots edge into the corner of vision, and it feels like his lungs are about to rip apart. Wow, I'm really gonna die here, at the hands of this sewer rat. Just as Izuku starts to think that it's all over, that he's about to come a suit of this crazy man, the cold suddenly vanishes, and Izuku is being dropped to the ground. His vision blurs, and he swears he sees stars behind his eyelids as he lays on the grass, as still as death. He doesn't bother getting up. His body is already trying to restore its reserves of energy, so he can't delay that. He should probably take a nap, or would it be weird, seeing as he's literally in the middle of a pathway? He's slept in worse places before. He may as well. A hand starts slightly slapping his cheek, rapidly and in quick succession. A hushed voice reaches his ears, and it sounds a little rough around the edges. Or maybe Izuku really is losing it. Hey, wake up! Hey! Izuku blinks against the sun in his eyes, staring at the shadowed figure above him. He frowns. Who the hell has awakened me from my slumber? Ha! I thought we lost you there! Izuku's vision clears, and he promptly lets out the most ear-splitting screech, because there's no fucking way that All Might is standing 3 feet away from him. His first thought is, oh my god, it's All Might, and his second thought is, oh fuck, it's All Might. Izuku knows exactly who this man is. He'd be living under a rock otherwise. This is the symbol of peace, the pillar of justice, but Izuku also knows who he is in relation to Father. He knows everything that the hero in front of him stands for, which means Izuku should leave. He shouldn't be here. If Father found out he'd gotten within even a mile from All Might, he'd be... No. It's been 4 years. Izuku needs to stop worrying about Hisashi and what he'll think. The man probably won't even find out, though Izuku doubts that. Oh, looks like you're moving around, all right, All Might says, and Izuku realizes that he's still screeching. He cuts off abruptly, his terror fading away to be replaced with excitement. 2 idols. He met 2 of his idols in just the past couple of weeks alone. Izuku is about to have a stroke. The boy looks around quickly, eye scanning the ground. I've got to get an autograph. Holy shit, where's my notebook? My pen? Izuku grabs his discarded journal, only to see that it's already been flipped to a page, and the boy screams again, this time out of delight. All Might's signature is scrawled across 2 whole pages in black ink, something that Izuku never thought he would ever get the chance to have. All Might, sir, thank you so much, Izuku looks up, only to trail off as he watches the man walk away, tightening the lid of a bottle stuffed in his cargo pants. He must be keeping the villain there. Interesting. So it really is like slime. You just gotta contain it. I must get going, my boy. Goodbye now. The hero crouches down, as if preparing for a leap. Oh, wait, no. I have something to ask him. I have to ask him something, and this is mistake number 2. Izuku grabs onto his pant leg, not really thinking about the consequences of doing so, and then the world becomes a blur. It's not until a solid 5 seconds later does he realize that he's flying. Hey, hey, hey! All Might's voice is nearly lost to the wind, but Izuku still manages to hear him. What do you think you're doing? I love my fans, but this is too much! Izuku grips onto the man's leg tighter, hair whipping across his face as the hero tries to dislodge him. No, wait, I can't let go now. We're flying. I might die. All Might pauses. Oh, yes. That's a good point. I do not want a repeat of the helicopter incident. Izuku is frantically trying to explain that he has a question he wants to ask him over the wind when suddenly they touch down onto a roof. Shaking slightly, Izuku looks over to the man who's trying to make his escape yet again. All Might, sir, please, I need you to answer this one question. Just one, I promise. A cloud of smoke greets him, revealing a tall, lanky man with blonde hair and piercing eyes. And that's not All Might. Well, it is. It's just the man in his deflated form. Kind of like a balloon if you think about it. That's how a father explained it to him anyway. I'll just call him Small Might. It seems the man's time limit is getting even shorter with each passing day. Izuku doesn't think the hero would let anyone know his secret willing, so that must have been an unhappy incident. Oh, that must be why he tried to leave so quickly. Izuku is now a little less offended. You're not freaking out? Small Might's astonished voice brings him out of his thoughts. Why don't you look surprised? That's right, Izuku shouldn't know about this at all. She should at least act like he's shocked. Should he scream again? No, that'll look fake. Honestly, fuck it. Izuku can just lie through his teeth like all the other times. He's incredibly done with this entire day, so this might as well just happen. I, kinda guessed. Izuku rubs the back of his head. I am a big fan, so I studied your moves and appearances, and made the connection that you have some sort of time limit? Small Might's mouth drops open, blood spewing from between his teeth, and Izuku hurries to correct himself. I didn't know about your other firm exactly. It just seemed plausible. He wrings his hands together, hoping he looks nervous enough to be believable. Once the hero stops coughing up a scarlet waterfall, he gives Izuku a grim look. My boy, you must know that this is a very important, dangerous secret. Have you let anyone else know about this? Izuku doesn't know why he feels a little insulted at the accusation. Of course not. I would never, I promise. It would ruin the whole world if it got out. He gets a small thank you from the number one after a few moments of awkward, well, probably awkward to Small Might, not so much to Izuku, silence. The man speaks up. Now that you know, you might as well ask me your question, young man. Izuku flushes. Well, it's not really for me, it's for a friend of mine. Go on. He takes a deep breath. Just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? Actually, don't answer that. He, wanted to ask if it's possible for someone with a villain's quirk to become a hero. There's a pause. A villain's quirk? Izuku shuffles, gaze on his feet. He kicks some of the gravel below them. Yes, sir. Like a quirk that's thought to be more useful for villains than heroes. That's an interesting question indeed. Small Might clears his throat, and Izuku is suddenly aware of how different his voice is in this form. How much lower. His hands itch for his notebook. Why does your friend want to be a hero, might I ask? Just tell him the truth. To help people, I think. To be someone that the people can look up to and know that they're not in danger anymore. Small Might studies him silently, his eyes glazing over briefly, seeming to think about something that Izuku is not privy to. I believe anyone could be a hero if they tried hard enough. A quirk does not make you who you are. Izuku's stomach does this weird swooping thing that makes his heart jump out of his chest. Okay, that's better than he... However, it's hard to deal with the discrimination that comes with villainous quirks. Sometimes it's better to just look into another profession. He tips his head in thought. Like police work, or even a doctor. There are other ways to be a hero. Oh, that makes more sense. He's basically telling him to go for something easier. So, to answer your question, yes, I do think it's possible, though I do not think it should happen, as a lot of time those aspiring heroes often face terrible struggles from those around them, and from the inside. It'd be better if they went for something else, for everyone involved. It's the way the man says they that has Izuku's mouth running dry. Oh. He says quietly. Okay. Should I really be surprised? He doesn't know how long he stands there, eyes focused on nothing, really. But when he comes to, All Might is gone, just like that, leaving Izuku alone on the building's rooftop. Izuku doesn't know what to think. He didn't expect any sort of real answer when he first asked the number one hero the question, but he also never thought he'd get this sort of reaction. He's right though, isn't he? You've known yourself all this time. You just never wanted to admit it. Something heavy settles in his stomach, making the boy regret eating those breadsticks. He wants to throw up. Hearing those words from one of his idols, just strengthened the walls around his mind and heart. He shouldn't care so much. Why is he so upset? Why is he so sad? So angry? Izuku asked. All Might answered. So who's really at fault? Great. He started out having a shitty day, had breadsticks to try and make it better, only to have those efforts ruined in just a few minutes later. That's just his luck, right? The walk home is short. It only takes him a few minutes to get there from where All Might left him. He retrieves the bag of supplies he left by the bridge and trudges up the 10 flight of stairs. It's broad daylight. He can't climb up it. He feels too upset to do laundry, so he just puts on his rabbit costume and turns right back out the door. You know what? Fuck All Might. Who needs that bitch? Going on patrol makes everything better. He can forget everything for a few hours at least. That last part was a lie. Izuku's fantastic luck strikes again, only 20 minutes into his patrol. By that point, he already stopped 2 muggings and helped an older man cross the street. So that's cool. Now, however, he's gliding across rooftops and relishing in the feeling of cool air hitting his face. There's commotion a little ways away. He extends his senses and finds a lot of quirks grouped together near an open alleyway, making him frown. A villain fight, huh? Takes him less than a minute to have a bird's-eye view of the scene. The first thing he notices is, well, the star of the show, the villain. The villain that All Might should have brought to the fucking police station. The one that Izuku nearly suffocated in not even an hour ago. That green and brown sludge is unmistakable. It's definitely the same guy. All Might must have dropped it when he flew away, or he lost it on the way to bringing it to the station. Arrogant and stupid. That's what All Might is. Izuku is stupid too. He should have seen it. He should have known that the villain wouldn't give up so easily. He's been trained for this kind of stuff, and yet he still somehow missed it. The second thing he notices is that quite a few heroes are already on the scene, except they're not doing anything. The heroes are standing there. Does the villain have hostage or something? Why are the heroes trying to keep back the press and civilians instead of trying to take down the fool and minimize property damage? Aren't they going to help? The idea of a hostage becomes a little more realistic as he catches sight of a figure near the front of the goo. Izuku hops onto the corner of the roof to get a better look. And that's when he sees it. A tuft of spiky blonde hair peeking out from the sledge, along with a familiar school-issued uniform. Kachan? School's been out for an hour and a half. School's been out for half an hour. They're a few blocks away from the Bakugo household, which is around 30 minutes from Aldera Middle School. The timestamp match up. It could very well be him, and the heroes still aren't doing anything. Izuku is moving before he can stop himself, his muscles burning from the sudden use of his enhancements. Suspended in mid-air for a fraction of a second after his jump, Izuku hikes up his knee and digs a knife out of his boot. His precision is deadly, and light reflects off polished metal as the blade soars through the air and hits the villain's exposed eye. The sludge recedes briefly, just enough for Izuku to see more of Kachan's body and skin. The Vigilante brings his leg down on an outer piece of the sludge, tearing a large chunk of it off and sending it far away from the villain's grasp. He hits the ground running, hand already reaching for his friend's wide, panic, crimson eyes meets his, and Izuku yanks. Kachan is almost fully out of the sludge now. His leg and torso are the only things still stuck. Izuku rears back with a cry and aims another kick at its face, shoving the knife further into its eye. The screech he gets in reply grates on his ears. He feels a tiny bit of satisfaction at the noise. He uses pull on his friend yet again, knowing that his back will obscure what his hands are doing from the cameras. Kachan is jerked forward slightly, and his frantically lets off a few large explosions to try and free the rest of the way. What can I do? Izuku fumbles for the small grenade in his belt, nearly dropping it as he pulls the pin and chucks it at the far side of the villain, as far away from Kachan as possible. This grenade isn't like his pink bomb, which is made for detaining smaller criminals and heroes who are chasing him. No, this is the grenade that Izuku uses for the big boys. This is his last one too. It costs him a lot to make. The sludge absorbs it immediately, as Izuku had hoped, and the boy can see the moment the villain realizes his mistake as he lets out a frantic yell. It's too late though, as the sludge then implodes, effectively destroying the base and causing some of the goo to dissipate. Thank God for science. Kachan slips free, stumbling to the ground and coughing up black liquid. Izuku darts forward to try and drag him away, only for a furious roar to make him look up. The sludge has expanded to twice its original size and is now looming over the two boys, bearing down on them monstrously. Oh fuck,
Please, I can't use any of my other quirks. His desperation and fear wins over all of his other emotion, and Izuku crouches down and throws his arm up in an X. Deflect comes to him naturally, and Izuku waits for the blow, waiting for the sludge to envelop them both. He's aware of the heroes and crowd screaming something behind him. They must have been screaming the entire time. He just never realized it. The blow never comes. The ground shakes. Izuku doesn't risk letting go of Deflect as a large shadow washes over them, and not even a moment later, a familiar booming voice shouts out, "Detroit Smash!" All Might. Izuku is left with a striking feeling of deja vu as the sludge villain suddenly explodes into a million pieces, and it's only the instinct that he grabs Kacchan before they both go flying. The shockwave is large, and chunks of sludge smack Izuku in the face like the ultimate bitch slap. They both land with a thud on the concrete, rolling forward a few feet. The boy covers Kacchan with his whole body until the wind dies down, and he can't help but sigh in relief at the realization that Kacchan is safe. He's not dead. Thank God. He flops onto his back once the commotion dies down, still a bit dazed. I lied, All Might. I do need you. Holy shit, I fucking love you, dude. All homo.
His euphoria is interrupted by Kacchan socking him in the shoulder. Why the hell did you do that? The blonde barks, eyes flaming. We would have both been dead, dumbass. Izuku sits up and chuckles, making sure his mask and hoodie are still in place. The last thing I need is an impromptu face reveal. Glad you're still alive, he says quietly, making sure no one else can hear them. Shitty nerd, I'll kill you. Kacchan reaches for him again, but Izuku dodges out of the way, already on his feet. The explosive teen would have chased after him had a hero not run forward and grabbed the boy's arm, directing him to the nearest medic. Everyone starts to crowd around the teen, asking if he's alright and telling him how brave he was, staying calm under such circumstances. Good, at least they're doing something now, after the fact. Izuku glances around and notices that All Might has already given the villain to the police, and he's answering questions from the press with an awkward hand rubbing at the nape of his neck. Now it's time for me to leave. He picks up his discarded knife from the ground and wipes the remaining sludge off on his costume, fearing that he might as well, seeing as he's going to wash it later. He's going to leave when a hero calls to him from beside a police officer, stepping forward pointedly. He's obviously hesitant to capture the boy after what he just did, but also not willing to let him go. Izuku holds his knife threateningly and turns on them. A voice icy as the righteous anger comes back at him full force. Are you fucking blind or something? Everything comes to a standstill. The chatter from the heroes and press stop at once as everyone snaps around to stare at the Vigilante. He was suffocating. Izuku gestures in the air with his blade, pointing at the man now restrained in the police car. That bastard over there was going to kill him, and you all just sat there and did jack shit. He's breathing heavily now, and he vaguely notices all of the cameras being turned on him, the reporters holding out their microphones. All Might has disappeared from view, though Izuku can still feel his quirk nearby. A woman to the far right of him shifts on her feet, jutting her chin out defiantly. None of our quirks were suited for the job. We would have made the situation worse. Worse? What situation is worse than letting a kid die because your quirks weren't suited for saving him? Izuku walks forward, flipping the knife repeatedly in the air out of nervousness. Is that what heroes do? Let kids die? Another one with hoses for hands shake his head. Of course not! We had a plan! Izuku ignores him, not wanting to waste a breath on this walking fire hydrant. How fucking useless are you guys? I'm not suited for dealing with a villain like that either, but at least I tried. You guys were doing okay with nothing as he suffocated, huh? No one interrupts him this time. Most of the heroes and policemen look ashamed, uncomfortably moving around and looking at the ground. It's kind of funny, Izuku thinks, how they all look like they've just gone scolded by their parents. He's only a little surprised that no one is trying to capture him. He just helped save the boy. Not just anyone. Kacchan. From a villain, and the cameras most likely captured it all. If they were to arrest him now, there'd probably be some sort of protest. Izuku crosses his arm, the knife held tightly in his grip. Did Hero School teach you guys nothing? Or the police academy? You're supposed to help people, not wait around for someone like All Might to save the day. He has to wrap this up. He can see Kacchan glaring at him from the corner of his eye. Whoopsie. I can't believe how shitty the system is these days. It doesn't matter what quirk you have, or lack thereof. You could be quirkless, or even just a mutant for fuck's sake. It doesn't matter. What really matters is your brain and how you use it. Izuku doesn't know why he's ranting like this. Maybe because All Might's words are still fresh in his mind, along with his bullies. He's getting too passionate about this. It's time to go. He lets the silence after hang in the air for a few moments. as if to let what he had said sink in, before blowing out an annoyed breath. You're all just a bunch of pussies.
Boom. Mic drop.
Shakily, Izuku lets some extra energy flow to his legs and jumps onto the nearby cafe, running along the rooftops until he's out of sight, ignoring the calls of his vigilante name behind him. Fuck, he said too much. Stupid, stupid! His phone is buzzing nonstop as he runs, but Izuku is too angry to answer the text. It's probably Kachan. He heard the blonde's voice among the others calling him. He probably wants to yell at him again. Or maybe it's Tsukachi, as Izuku might have just been on the news. Yet again. This time was purely accidental, though. Well, sort of. Doesn't matter, he can't do anything about it now. Now it's time to hurt some bad guys. That always cheers him up. A few miles away in the break room of a thankfully quiet police station, Detective Tsukauchi shivers, glancing at the blank TV screen in anticipation. Rabbit's done something stupid again. I can feel it. Whenever Izuku is upset, he sleeps on the floor. It's completely ridiculous and totally irrational to an outside person, but it's a habit he picked up after his mother left him. The first night with his supposed father, Izuku laid on the hard mattress and stared up at the dirty ceiling with tired eyes. And it was that moment that everything changed. Nothing felt certain after that. Nothing ever feels right. Izuku just needs something concrete to hang on to every now and then, so he curls up on the floor and sleeps. He used to do it all the time under the care of his father. He used to require the comfort of a hard floor beneath him, something sure to cling onto in the midst of his spiraling thoughts and splintering words, as he'd never surely been given that comfort by anyone else. It doesn't make sense, but these things never really do. They just are. And so Izuku paces the run-down kitchen on the top floor of his building, his head pounding. This building hasn't had anyone live in it, legally, at least, in 2 decades. So the boy doesn't know why he's stressing so much. It's not like anyone is going to waltz in here and demand he leaves. Maybe because he just put himself under All Might's radar, both as Midoriya Izuku and as Rabbit. Why can't I just keep my mouth shut? Everything would be so much easier. But no, Izuku just had to start ranting about a flawed system of heroes and police, how having a certain quirk defines your worth and your duty. He was only able to patrol until midnight before his thoughts took over. He can barely concentrate the entire night, earning him a few more bruises than he honestly should have earned, skillfully speaking. Kachan could have died. Every time Izuku thinks about it, he starts to shake a little more. His only friend, the person who has stayed by his side for far longer than his own mother and father had, he could have died. Would have, if not for Izuku's small distraction and All Might's quick save. Izuku should have been faster, should have realized the sludge villain still posed a threat to civilians, even with the symbol of peace holding it. If he'd been there a few moments later, Kachan would have suffocated. And those heroes just stood by and did nothing. They watched, they kept back their reporters and tried to calm everyone down, which would have made Izuku a little less angry had Kachan not been in immediate danger with no one willing to help. It'd be foolish to blame those heroes personally, though. Rather, Izuku points the blame at the system that allowed this to happen. And he said as much in front of everyone, in front of cameras, yet again, he spewed out his distaste, aware that if he didn't leave soon, the heroes would try to capture him. He was stupid. He should have left when All Might took care of the situation. He should have disappeared as soon as he made sure Kachan was okay, but he didn't, and there's nothing he can do about it now. His alter ego is trending on 4 different social media platforms. He's in the public eye. Izuku can't tell if that's good or bad. The only reason he kept his identity a secret so far is because he's avoided cameras. The more he talks and acts out in front of people, the more chance there is of someone connecting Rabbit to Midoriya Izuku. The chance is slim, but it's still there, and it's enough to make Izuku panic even more. So many things have happened today. He ran into some of his old bullies, met All Might, then the same man in his deflated form, and then helped save Kachan from the same sludge villain that tried to wear his skin as a suit. It makes Izuku's head spin, and that's how he finds himself laying on the cold ground next to his couch. He doesn't have a bed, since those things are expensive, and he'd rather not pick one out of the garbage. The couch is where he usually sleeps, but sometimes it gets too soft for him, like now. It's one of those days where he needs to have something hard beneath him, something concrete. He probably won't be able to fall asleep, though, but that's the least of his worries. There's a slight gnawing pain in his stomach all of a sudden. Now that he's thinking about it, he's felt it ever since the sludge villain attacked him. Just not this bad. That's right, I haven't eaten since those breadsticks, and they barely filled me up. He should probably make himself some of that instant ramen. It'd just be cold. Well, he could put iced coffee into the ramen to give it more flavor. Maybe to distract himself from the fact that it's cold? Maybe when I'm more awake. He stares at the dusty ceiling and thinks about how this day could have been better. The only highlight was the food. This sucks, he says out loud, to no one in particular. Silence he gets in return drapes over him like a blanket, and Izuku closes his eyes to continue pretending to sleep until the next morning, hoping tomorrow will prove to be a little better. Notes. M. Hero Shadow by Feeling Stabby. Chapter 6. An ultimatum. There is no actual trigger warnings that's in the notes, so I will be just continuing on. Izuku feels like an oxymoron. He steals. He stops people from stealing. He breaks into places. He stops muggings and robberies. He hurts people. He stops people from hurting others. Granted, the men and women he hurt aren't good people in the slightest, but Izuku knows it doesn't make it okay. He can't find it in himself to care, though, because he has this need to just do what's right. He also needs food and money, which his clients provide him with when he gets his jobs done. Sometimes the only way to survive is to break the law and get on Detective Tsukachi's last nerve, which is an added bonus, in Izuku's humble opinion. Forgive him, but he will do anything. Commit any crime, no matter the size, if it means he can survive for another day. Because if he lives, he can help others. That's just how being homeless works. Sometimes Izuku gets lucky. Sometimes people are so grateful to him as Rabbit that they offer him money or food if they can spare it. It used to make him uncomfortable. He started being a vigilante because he wanted to help people. He never meant to get anything in return except maybe a slightly clearer conscience to help him. Pretend to. Sleep at night. But then the heroes started taking interest in him and the game changed a little. No. A lot. He then couldn't stay in the same spot for more than a couple of days for fear of one of the pros catching him. He could no longer take his time patrolling the city. He's almost been caught by police more than once. He has scar from his trip-ups to prove it. Now he has to speed run through his routes and go over them multiple times to make up for his haste. At least Izuku can be a vigilante. If he can't be a hero, he can at least do that. So now Izuku gets to feel like a hypocrite, because he takes and takes and takes, and being a vigilante is the only way he knows how to give back. The rage he feels towards villain and people in general sometimes threatens to consume him, so he slides his mask on and does what he does best. He runs towards the danger and prepares for a fight. Tonight is no different. He got a tip from one of his clients that there's going to be a large human trafficking ring happening downtown. There's supposedly going to be around 30 kids there, all ranging from ages 11 to 19. It sounds normal, easy, familiar. So, of course, he should have known that life hates his guts, as if he couldn't catch a break between having to jump out of a helicopter so he wouldn't be blown up and having to save Kachan from a freaky sledge villain. Now he's stuck having to take down a trafficking ring with an undesirable amount of guards around it. Fan-fucking-tastic. If Izuku is anything, he's quiet. He presses himself to the wall and blends in with the shadows. Happy that the dark green of his suit allows him that advantage. He barely breathes, instead becoming one with his surroundings. People are talking right below him. Harsh, barked voices, overlapping each other as they communicate. They're speaking in English, that much is obvious. Izuku thanks the skies above that his shitty father had at least taught him that. Between 6 different languages, English was the hardest to grasp. Where the hell is he?
He said he's running late. Don't get your panties in a twist.
Izuku smirks to himself, inching alongside the edge of the wall to hear them better. There's 4 of them, directly below him in a tight circle, dressed in suits. Looks cheap, Izuku notes, so they must not be too important, or they're gun for hires. Which makes this a little bit harder, but also a bit more fun. So far, no sign of hostages or victims, Izuku guesses. There's apparently a lot, so they won't be too hard to miss. They're likely in a room off to the side, waiting for the rest of the participants, likely guarded too. He can see the guns slung over the men's back, so he knows they mean business. Now Izuku isn't sure if this is the dealing part of the trade. This could be, as bad as it sounds, the viewing part, where the buyers come and look at the victims and then later decide on the price. But if this is just a pickup, where these mercenaries are probably just here to make sure everything runs smoothly, Then things just got a whole lot more difficult, because this means his time frame will be cut short. He'll have to be quick with this. There's also a chance a third party might come in, as the buyers surely have their own bodyguards. Izuku glances back down and notices more people coming from a side hallway, the abandoned warehouse. Why is it always in an abandoned building? Izuku thinks. Be more creative, guys. Is dark, lit by only a few well-placed lamps and candles. It's just enough light for Izuku to make out their faces. It starts in 10 minutes. He should be here by now, seeing as he's the one who's operating it. Oh, spill the tea. Izuku thinks about how funny it would be if he were to drop down right beside them, like, who's he, but ultimately decides not to. He'll make sure to do one for the memes later on. Watch your mouth. If he hears you say that. The one who first spoke turns on his friend, gesturing with his gun. He'll what? Sell me? That's all he's good for. Okay, Izuku would love to hear more of the roast fest going on here, but he has kids to locate. Dumb and Dumber number 1 told him that it apparently starts in 10 minutes, meaning he has just short of that to secure the victims and start to get them out. 10 minutes. He's done it in less time before, but not nearly with as many people to evacuate. Can't wait to tell Kachan about this shit. He's gonna flip. Izuku balances on the beam he's crouching on and shuffles forward quietly, making his way into the ventilators. It's just big enough for him to squeeze through, but it's not too hot. He's not very good with enclosed spaces in areas he isn't familiar with, but as long as he's got a way out, he'll be okay. Besides, he's doing this to help the kids stuck in this shithole. His watch tells him it's 5 minutes before 10, so he's gotta hurry if he wants to finish this before 11. He promised Kachan he'd go with him to the mall tomorrow, so he has to leave enough time to finish up his other work before then as well. Izuku stops by a hatch and peers down into his lips into an empty hallway. There's no noise, so he keeps going, ingraining the location in his mind. It's been a few days since the sludge villain attacked him, and thus a few days since he saved his friend and ranted to the press about how dumb heroes are. Not his best moment, for sure, but definitely one of his ballsiest. His patrols have been going relatively quiet, granting Izuku a little bit more of a reprieve from the chaos and exposure he's received lately. He can still feel those eyes on him, though. They get closer with each passing day. It's only a matter of time before whoever is following him decides to pay him a visit. Izuku has a good idea on who it is. Static crackles below him, and he pauses once more, peeking through the nearest vent hatch and entrance.
Everything okay over there?
Ooh, it's in Japanese this time. A tall, bulky man is pacing back and forth in the middle of the walkway, dressed in the same attire as the previous guys. He, however, has a thick, bulletproof vest on, obviously being more of a fighter. He looks like he could crush Izuku's skull in between his biceps. The boy shudders at the thought. It's the radio sitting on the crusher's hip that made the noise. Someone is checking in on his position.
All clear. How much longer?
Oh, Crusher has a Russian accent, is speaking Japanese, and looks like he's German, all while being involved in a trafficking ring with some English speakers. The flavor here is immaculate. Izuku carefully lifts up the vent, grateful that he's small enough to fit through, and waits for an opening. He'll have to be extra careful as he has no clue what this guy's quirk is. He isn't very keen on finding out either. That can come later, once the people responsible for this have been interrogated by the police and their names have been filed. Makes for good analysis practice.
Boss is late. Stand by.
Crusher turns his back towards Izuku, walking another few feet before stopping. Roger. That looks like an opening, don't you think? The voices in Izuku's head, for once, don't answer, and the boy drops down silently, slinking forward until he's right behind the man.
Bill.
It's almost comical how quickly Crusher whips around with wide eyes, hand reaching for his gun on instinct. You! Izuku doesn't give him a chance to finish, his fist pulling back and smashing into his face with what's probably excessive force. The punch is so strong that the man drops like a rock, knocked unconscious. Blood leaks like a steady faucet from his nose, and Izuku frowns. Excessive? Yes. Necessary? Absolutely. He bends down and takes the gun from the man's grip, eyes already running over to figure out what kind it is. It's heavy, but not as heavy as Izuku expected. He's only a little surprised when he recognizes the tranq dart sitting inside. So, he must be one of the keepers. He's in charge of making sure that the kids are behaving, meaning they've got to be close by. Izuku slings the gun over his shoulder and kicks Crusher off to the side, hoping no one will stumble across him and sound an alarm. He speed walks down the dark hallway, peeking around the corners and opening all the doors he passes. 5 minutes left. He just about crashes into a woman running by, but it's only by instinct that he drops to the ground and slides forward, knocking her feet out from under her. She shoots a tranq dart, and it barely misses the boy as it bounces off the floor and shatters. Izuku is behind the kneeling agent now, and he simply cocks his own gun and aims 2 darts at her, not willing to have a full-on fight with her. He's already running to continue his search when her radio crackles.
Nova? What was that sound?
Nova. That's an interesting nickname. She must have a force quirk or something. Maybe a fire quirk? Which reminds him that he's going into this whole thing blind. It's not usually like this. Any other time, Izuku would have already known the participants and their power, and he would have developed a plan that best suited his mission. But now, Izuku thinks faintly that he might need some backup.
Nova?
The radio crackles again. Time to go! The boy digs into his pockets for his phone, shooting off a quick text to a certain detective with the address of the warehouse. After a moment's hesitation, he adds the number 30 after the words. Hopefully the man will get what he means. He only adds 1 emoji this time. A clown face. Izuku clenches his teeth and takes off, extending his senses as far as they will allow. Come on, search. Feel their energies, rabbit. Extract doesn't just allow him to take quirks and their properties. It gives him an acute sense of the quirks themselves and of where they are. On some occasions, Izuku can pick out who the person is just on the energy or power of their quirk. Or lack thereof. Excuse. But the splitting headache that nearly has him crumpling in pain usually stops him from using it to this extent. While he can feel the energies of the people closest to him on the daily, since that part of extract seems to always be active, he can never really feel them when they're a long ways away. Not unless he's really searching. Like now. On the left, there's a bunch of people in that storage room up ahead. Izuku rounds the corner, shooting the 2 guards closest to him with ease as he dodges the fucking bullet that grazes his ear. The boy eyes the culprit, who's standing protectively in front of the double doors housing the victims. He's smaller than his fellow counterparts, but he seems to stand much taller. Get out of there, brat, if you know what's good for you. Cocky fucker. He's speaking Japanese as well. Izuku jumps onto the wall and bounces off of it, leaping at the guard like a feral cat. No, like a rat with rabies. He tries to draw in a breath before his attack, only to feel nothing coming into his throat. In fact, air is suddenly being pulled out of his lungs, scratching against his insides painfully. Oh, this man either has a breathtaking quirk, pun fully intended, or an air manipulation quirk. Either way, it's gotta end fast, or Izuku's not gonna be able to finish as quickly, if at all. The boy falters in midair, twisting away from the bullet aimed at his head, and promptly kicks the guard with so much force that they're both sent crashing through the doors. Huh. That works. They're screaming, and it's only when he sees a large group of teens and young adults around him that he realizes how bad this must look.
Hey, I'm here to help. It's okay. I'm going to...
A hand grabs his leg, and Izuku casually kicks the guard beneath him sharply, hoping no one saw it in the faint light. There's thundering footsteps down the hallway, and Izuku's eye twitches in frustration.
You guys stay here for a little longer. I have to deal with those assholes out there, okay?
He doesn't wait for a reply before backing out of the darkness and throwing himself into the fray. This is not good. His time is up. It's probably been 10 minutes by now, and they most likely know he's here. The alarm will sound any second. There it is. Right on time. The dusty walls are painted in red lighting as the alarms sound off, and Izuku feels his hopes start to diminish. Come on, Tsukauchi. I'd prefer it if the backup came today. A hit to the face has him crashing into another guard, who immediately covers the boy's face in what looks like plastic. And okay, that's a pretty funny quirk, having plastic wraps come out of your wrist like some sort of discount Spider-Man. Funny, but also deadly. Izuku struggles against the tight hold on him as he's being held against a wall, slowly starting to suffocate. Give it up, you fucking brat. The English sounds rough in Izuku's ear. Just let us do this to you. It'll be painless if you stop struggling. Wow, Izuku knows these people are pedophiles, but damn. With a renewed vigor, he kicks the chin of the guy before him and throws his head back against the one smothering him. The crack of the bone fills the air, only partially drowned out by the alarms and the approaching sirens. And Izuku quickly rips the plastic off of him. He turns on them, grin sharp behind his mask. He wishes they could see it. He picks up his discarded tranq gun and gets back to shooting. He drops half of them before he runs out of darts. And then he backs up into a corner to get a bird's-eye view of the few guards left. A pink sludge bomb does the trick. It's his last one, so Izuku will have to be careful now. After finding another gun and making sure the criminals who are stuck in the goo are unconscious now, he calls out to the scared teens panting now. They come out slowly and in one large group, which would have been more heartwarming to see if they weren't currently in the given situation. He holds out his hands placatingly so as to not scare them and tells them the plan. They have to be quiet and they have to listen to him. He mentally mapped out all of the hallways and rooms he checked in, so going back to the exit will prove easy. He just has to get them there. Izuku leads them like a pack of wolves. Not many guards stand in the way, not after seeing how bloodthirsty the group looks. And if the boy sees some of the victims kicking and spitting on the unconscious guards as they pass, he doesn't mention it. They have a right to be angry. He can give them a little bit of reprieve. It takes mere minutes to get to the fateful door leading to the outside. Izuku ushers them out two at a time, directing them to the approaching sirens and police cars skidding to a halt out front. Izuku is constantly keeping a close eye on his surroundings, so he's ready for it when 4 more hitmen appear out of the side hallway, guns blazing. They don't shoot him, obviously not willing to risk shooting their prized possessions, but they do aim a few shots at the ceiling, which causes 3 of the teens to start to run away from the exit. Izuku, who's just finishing up taking down the guards, watches them go with a huff.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
He goes after them once he's ordered the rest of the victims to keep going towards the heroes. They'll be cared for there. And Izuku doesn't know what it is with stairs and people thinking that that's where they should run during a raid, but kids are heading there and the gremlins are fast. Izuku's tired. He can barely keep up. It's only the sinking feeling in his gut that tells him something bad is going to happen that spurs him forward. They're already on the top floor, heading for the rooms on the far side of the building when he reaches them.
Hey, it's okay. We've got to get you 3 out.
They face him, terrified, and Izuku makes sure he sounds as soft as possible as he continues, putting a hand on one of the little boys' heads.
It's safer back down there.
A girl, looking the oldest out of the 3, takes charge. She can't be older than Izuku himself. Are the heroes here? Izuku nods, and he would have responded verbally had he not just heard the heavy footsteps coming from the side of them. The boy instantly shoves the group behind him, facing the very large figure in front of him. He looks just short of 300 pounds, and he wears a crisp suit with a fully shaved head. The suit is much nicer than the ones some of the guards have been wearing. He must be the boss. It's you, he says, as if equal parts amused and irritated. The Japanese is Smoon, meaning he's obviously from here. I knew you have something to do with it, brat. Brat. That's the 3rd time someone has called him that in just the past 10 minutes alone. Izuku is offended.
If anyone calls me that one more time, I'm gonna go back to Dewey on another cannibalism charge.
The big bad guy chorkles. You're funny, Rabbit, you know. I've been waiting to meet you. Izuku feels the kids behind him trembling. He has to get them out safely before he finishes this up.
Give me a second here and I'll gladly get acquainted with you, aight?
Another low chuckle, and Izuku ignores the slight fear that coils up in his stomach. He points to the stairs, giving the older girl a meaningful look.
Just get down those stairs and you'll be alright.
He hands her his tranq gun, pushing her and the 2 boys back a bit.
Use that if you need to. Now go.
She thankfully doesn't argue, as she quickly leads the kids away, fumbling a bit with the gun. Izuku lets out a breath, his eyes lighting up. He faces the big bad guy, suddenly met with a bunch of knives hovering around like the man like wings. That's his quirk. Blades? The man winks at him. I'm going to enjoy this, kiddo. I have a feeling I won't. Shota doesn't really mind vigilantes, in all honesty. He sees why they do what they do, even when they push boundaries and break laws. As long as they're working for the right side and have a pretty good head on their shoulders, Shota doesn't see the harm in letting them do their thing. Most of the vigilantes Shota have met in the past use similar unorthodox methods to capture and restrain villains. Those vigilantes are brutal, efficient, and quick-witted. Rabbit is no different, except for the fact that he's most definitely on the younger side, and also that he's a little more, well, explosive, both in personality and actuality. The man has to admit that he's never been a fan of how the Hero Commission tries to keep everything tightly controlled. They sound out heroes like Endeavor for the slightest reasons, at least when they realize they can't get what they want when they want it. It's probably worse for a hero who isn't underground, someone like All Might. While the number one hero can obviously get away with a lot more stuff than regular pros can, he's also a lot more limited. Being in the public eye has its advantages, but with the popularity also brings with it a ton of restraints. All Might can't, for example, bash a group of newer heroes for not saving a young boy from a villain made of sludge. It would be considered distasteful and kind of unprofessional. While for Shota himself, being the underground hero he is, can say pretty much whatever he damn well pleases. As long as it's not directly denouncing the commission, it's not like he'd give a rat's ass about the backlash he receives anyways. But, back to the point, hero laws can drastically limit heroes, so of course, vigilantes have no such constraints. It's similar to how laws and systems in general only apply to those willing to abide by them. Those who aren't willingly are simply going to turn into criminals and villains, thus making vigilantes, by definition, criminals, which is why Shota only complained a little bit when he was put on Rabbit's case. He's a hero, and it's his job to take down criminals and protect the peace, but Shota can also see where the detective is coming from. To be spotted this many times in only a week or so, and be connected to so many fucking cases, it's only natural the commission wants him out of the picture, or maybe in the picture. They want him alive, or else they'd have sent Endeavor already, despite Tsukauchi's promises. They probably want him for themselves. The vigilante has a higher success rate than most of the top heroes today, and has the skills to match even the dirtiest of villains, so the commission, getting their hands on him, would be the equivalent to finding a piece of chocolate in a shop full of nothing but licorice, with the licorice being the agents that do the commission's dirty work. Why go for the shitty stuff when you can have something better? Something near perfect, someone who is fresh and almost always successful in their work. Shota and any other sane person would take the chocolate. Okay, maybe not the best analogy, but it works. Rabbit would become the perfect weapon for them, much like the number 3 hero is, which is a dangerous topic in itself, but that's a discussion for another time. Brad is definitely not sloppy with the stuff. Shota had assumed that the vigilante would mess up a little bit more, considering how new he is to all of this. Sure, his files claim that he's been doing this for years now, only having gained popularity more recently, but Shota still considers him pretty fresh. If you don't count the past 2 incident, Rabbit is like a ghost. The criminals he takes down always say that they didn't even see him coming. They couldn't get a good look at his face, or even at his quirk. Also, they say he is apparently short, snarky, and fast. Incredibly fast. Which backs up the theory that he has enhancement quirk that would explain how he seems to evade heroes well enough up to this point. Even Shota himself has a little trouble keeping up with him. Strong, fast, and obviously intelligent, Shota sort of respects Rabbit, at least until he opens his mouth. The expletives that come out of his mouth sometimes are enough to make even Shota wince. It's more than obvious that he's young. Shota doesn't know how to feel about that. He's never really had any strong opinions on teenagers or kids in general. He teaches them, sure, but he's also expelled so many of them in just the past couple years alone. And while it looks like he doesn't care, he can't bear to see his students not take their lives seriously by doing dumb, crazy stunts. It's costly, a word Rabbit probably doesn't even have in his mental dictionary. He doesn't want the kid to end up dead in a ditch somewhere due to his own recklessness, a feeling that the detective shares with him. I'm going to kill him. I'm actually going to kill him. This little shit is making me go insane. Shota smirks to himself, taking a long sip of his coffee before replying to the detective. I don't see what's so bad about this. He called those pros out, as they should have. You don't see what's so bad? Tsukauchi throws him a glare. There's no real heat behind it. That video is trending over 4 different social media platforms, Aizawa. Not just in Japan. Do you know how bad this makes everyone look? The board is pissed. Why? Because he's right? The detective huffs. You're insufferable sometimes. And don't act like you're all innocent. This is kind of your fault, you know. You were supposed to go talk to him. It's annoying to be called out. That was a few hours earlier when Shota had dropped by the station yet again after seeing the news. His friend had been in the middle of an exasperated breakdown, faded coffee stains on his button-up shirt and slacks, paper and documents discarded all around him. Shota knows he was debating whether or not to track the vigilante down himself and smack some sense into him. Hell, Shota is debating whether or not to go lecture the kid. Being proud of Rabbit for spewing the truth to those heroes, the man can also realize how bad of a decision that will prove to be later. He just pissed off the Hero Commission even more, along with all the less sensical pros. but he's also probably won the favor of some villains. Rabbit has undeniably done himself a disservice. While he's got the support of a lot of general public now, especially after saving that blonde boy, he's also made a lot of enemies. His phone suddenly rings, breaking him from his thoughts. And Shota skids to a stop on the rooftop he's running on. Ah, speak of the devil and he shall appear. I was at the station not even 3 hours ago, Sakauchi. What is it? You know I'm on patrol. The man answers with a hurried tone, and Izuku instantly goes rigid. Rabbit just texted me an address. He's busting a trafficking ring. Are you available as backup? Where? What's the situation looking like? I sent my closest officers. They have most of the kids, I think, but they're still hearing shots in the building. I'll forward you the text. He hangs up abruptly, and not 1 moment later, the man hears a ding on his phone, and then Shota is sprinting. He's only 2 miles away. He can get there quickly if he pushes it. He glances at the text again, frowning at the number written after the address. 30. 30 what? Guards? Minutes? Victims? Victims. It sounds like the best guess, which means he needs to make sure the police and other heroes know the count so they can tell if they're missing anyone. The sounds of gunshots get closer. A couple of heroes are already spread out throughout the neighborhood, evacuating them because of the proximity to the raid. Shota uses his capture weapon to spring him forward even faster as he approaches the police officers camped out front. Quite a few ambulances are parked on the side, tending to what looks like the victims. There's supposed to be around 30 of them, he announces, garnering their attention. How many have you counted? The hero closest to him straightens up. 27 at Racerhead. We haven't checked the upper floor yet, so there might be a few more there. I'll check, and in the meantime, get some firefighters on the scene. Shota ignores the confused look the hero gives him. He has a feeling fire is going to get involved simply because of Rabbit's presence. The first thing he notices when he goes is the bodies on the ground. A few paramedics rush past Shota to check the unconscious criminals. None of them look dead, so that's a plus. There's gunshots high above, faint due to the distance, and Shota narrows his eyes to try to adjust to the darkness. The alarms are still going, it's making his dry eye worse. Giving a nod to the paramedics, he heads for the stairs on the far side of the room. The building is big for a warehouse, and Shota has to take large steps as to not trip on the criminals lying on the ground. Now that he's looking, Shota can see the darts stuck to their skin. Tranks. That explains a lot. He takes the steps 2 at a time, only to run into a small group of kids halfway up. They immediately stumble back with fearful eyes, and the girl steps forward, ushering the 2 boys behind her. They must have been trying to go down, and Shota got in the way. The group seems unhurt, though a little shaken up, and the older girl holds up a gun with trembling hands. Shota instantly puts his hands up, still on the steps. I am a pro hero, he explains softly, looking her in the eye to make sure she listens. I'm not here to hurt you. I just need to know, is anyone else up there? The girl hesitantly nods. Only the hero and the boss is up there. Hero? Does she mean Rabbit? Shota nods in acknowledgement. You 3 follow me, and be careful. He reaches for the gun with wide movements, carefully taking away from the girl before casting it to the side. Are any of you? An explosion suddenly rocks the building, and Shota instinctively pulls the 3 kids to him and jumps over the side of the stairs as fire engulfs the entire top level. He uses his capture weapon to make sure the victims are secure against him before booking it to the exit, the sudden heat acting as encouragement. Yep, Rabbit is definitely here. And 27 out there. These must be the last 3. He has full intention of helping Rabbit after depositing the kids to the police and paramedics. The girl gives him a shaky thank you, and he just gives her a curt nod before turning back to the fire building. There doesn't seem to be any criminals left on the bottom floor, so it's uphill from here. The heroes are almost finished with dragging the guards out, so they won't get burned. He stops to ask if they need help, and after being waved off, he heads back up to the top. Gunshots. More heat, shouted voices. He races up the long metal stairs and sees a few bodies being dropped from the railings on the uppermost floor. There's no heroes or police this high up, so it must be Rabbit. It seems like the Vigilante is doing good without him, but he still has to help. He has to see it for himself. This event might help solve Shota's current troubles of having to actually catch the Vigilante in question. The files Sakauchi handed him didn't really shed any light on what kind of person he's dealing with, which is why he took it upon himself to look up everything he could about the teenager, even going as far as to try to note his frequent patrol routes and the time he takes to go through them. He seems like a good person, generally speaking, but for all Shota knows, Rabbit could be completely different behind his mask. He's never even heard the Vigilante speak except for in recordings. And then, it's even highly possible the kid's using a homemade voice changer. They know nothing beyond how he usually acts due to how well his actual identity is hidden. He's barely even seen the guy apart from a few interactions here and there. when Shota had been trying to tell him, but ended up being far too slow to capture him. According to the evidence, Rabbit is a happy, rebellious vigilante who's not afraid to speak his mind and do what he thinks is right. He's also incredibly intelligent and skillful. So, yeah, there's a chance Shota might be in over his head, but all of those thoughts come to a halt when he catches sight of a dark green figure, illuminated by the flames behind him, heading for the window after seemingly catching his breath. Bingo. You wanted me to talk the kids, Tsukachi, so that's what I'm gonna do. Izuku didn't mean to get shot, honestly, but the big bad guy had set off an explosion right before the scuffle started, and being the greedy bastard he is, had taken all of his attention during their fight. Izuku made himself vulnerable then, as he assumed the boss was the only one left. He didn't notice the guard to the side until it was too late. Izuku had seen it, though. He'd seen the flash of light reflecting off the gun's barrel. But it was still a little dark. He assumed it to be a trank gun. With his enhanced metabolism, he was confident that the trank dart wouldn't work on him. And besides, he hadn't wanted to risk anyone else getting shot by it. And so, Izuku hadn't dodged at all, instead parrying another hit from the big bad guy, taking the dart in his abdomen. He had not, of all things, expected the wave of pain that would rock through him upon the bullet's impact, or for the bullet itself to be a hollow point. Yeah, definitely a trank gun, meaning he now has several small pieces of metal inside him, and not in the fun way.
What the shit?
Izuku yanks the gun from his side opponent, darting forward to kick the man's leg out from under him before throwing him over the ledge of the top floor. Let the heroes have him. They're like sharks anyway, bloodthirsty motherfuckers. Another knife flies towards him, and Izuku blocks it with one of his own, grabbing the discarded blade before throwing both of them at the big bad guy. He ducks down at the nick of time, but it gives Izuku the distraction he hoped for. He sails forward, foot outstretched, only for his ankle to be caught and his bony to be thrown to the ground. His breath leaves him all at once, and then the big bad guy is towering over him, another knife being drawn out of thin air with his quirk. Izuku jerks to the side, dodging the blade as it drives itself into the wood beneath him, like it's nothing but wet paper. That could have been my head. He hikes his legs up to wrap around the man's throat, trying to rapidly draw in all the air he can before making his move.
This is where you're supposed to moan.
Izuku chokes out, arching forward and driving his fist into the man's temple. The big bad guy sways, and Izuku doesn't wait to see if he's still conscious before unclenching his legs and rolling away, watching as the man face plants into the floor. Is he out? Izuku hopes so. Oh, fuck yeah! I'm amazing! I'm a fucking god! He turns away, already eyeing the broken window. He's gotta go. There's a bunch of heroes here. They'll take care of everything else. He barely has any energy left to use. He's gotta save it for escaping. And the bullet in his abdomen, very much like to be treated, thank you, and soon. But then there's an angry roar behind him, which foils his plans. Izuku moves, but evidently not fast enough as he's body slammed to the ground, being thrown straight into the flames. It appears the big bad guy hasn't been as unconscious as he thought. I'll kill you, Rabbit! He tries to jump out of the fire, not wanting to get fried like a chicken wing, but the man seems dead set on wrestling him in the flames, and he tries to tackle him again. Izuku is ready this time around, and he meets him head-on with a shattering kick to the stomach, sending the criminal stumbling to the side. He grabs his shoulder with one hand and his head with the other, using the very last bit of his strength to twist the man around and slam him into the wall. The crackling of flames drowns out the guy's yells, and Izuku sees a knife appear shakily beside him. The boy just slams the guy into the wall even harder, not stopping until the mental hold on the blade is released and it clatters to the ground. Good. He must be unconscious for real now. Izuku steps back, letting the big bad guy slump to the floor in a bloodied heap. A little messier than I intended, but it's his fault. His quirk is hella strong. Heat suddenly looks up Izuku's pant legs, and the boy only then remembers that fire is fucking hot. Grabbing the criminal by the back of his vest, the boy drags him away from the flames before heaving him over the railings, dropping him to the base level like he's an anchor to ship. There's shouts from below, and it sounds like the pro heroes are giving instructions and body counts. No one's been recovered dead, apparently, which is a win in Izuku's book. Something moves out of the corner of his vision, and the boy turns to get a glimpse of red eyes staring straight at him, almost gleaming in the firelight. Sends shivers down Izuku's spine, because he suddenly knows. It's him, the guy who's been following him for the past few weeks. He can feel the prickling sensation start up at the back of his neck, and Izuku is certain that he's right. Which reminds him, he should probably be escaping right about now. Izuku turns tail and runs. He stifles his cry of pain as he corkscrews out of the window, opening his arms up wide as he comes into the open air. Oh, right. They're a few miles away from the city, so there's nothing but houses here. He has nothing to land on but trees. He crashes through the leaves, covering his face with his arms as branches scrape and claw at him like thorns. He hits the ground, none too gently, and scrambles to his feet, pressing a hand against his abdomen as more blood leaks from his gunshot wound. A glance behind him shows that, yes, he is being followed. A figure is jumping through the trees after him with all the grace of a cat, and it's clear, even from this far away, that it's definitely getting at him.
Oh, fuck. Oh, shit. Oh.
He stumbles over a root, but keeps going, not wanting to give up yet. His strength is waning, that's for sure. He stupidly used up all of his energy because of his enhancements, and not left any over for his getaway, which had been the original plan. The trees start to thin out, and Izuku feels a bit of hope bloom inside his chest as he sees a clearing up ahead. Houses line the streets, so Izuku must have finally reached a neighborhood. Izuku is under a street lamp, exiting the dense line of trees and making for his freedom, when a shadow falls over him. He puts on the brakes so hard that he ends up tripping over his own feet, and the next thing he knows, he is plummeting towards the ground, face first. Oh! He loves the taste of dirt in his mouth. There's a thud from somewhere in front of him, and he opens his eyes to see black boots standing just a few inches away from his face. Izuku is glad that his intuition had been right, as he does, in fact, know who he is. Rabbit. The man above him greets. The bastard doesn't even sound out of breath.
Eraserhead.
A pause, and then a hum and consideration. You're smaller than you look. Izuku snorts, lifting his chin off the ground to meet his gaze.
And you're more annoying than you sound. Look, if you're gonna capture me, just do it already. Make it a quickie.
Eraserhead doesn't blink an eye at the word choice. Not gonna capture you.
Huh. Interesting.
Izuku narrows his eyes once he gets a good look at him.
On an unrelated note, are you perhaps into bondage? The scarf gives it away. You can't really deny it.
Eraserhead makes a low noise, something between a huff and a grunt. You use sarcasm to distance people.
And yet, you're still here, so could you kindly fuck off? I'm in the middle of something.
What, staring at the dirt beneath you? The reply comes quick, and it has Izuku pushing him up by his elbows and leaning against a nearby tree, casually covering his bullet wound with his hand. His hoodie should be dark enough to hide the growing bloodstain. He can't show any weaknesses, lest Eraserhead decides to attack him for being an easy target. Izuku glares half-heartedly at him.
What do you want from me if you're not planning on arresting me?
I'll give you a choice. The man's gaze is piercing, letting Izuku know of the sudden seriousness behind his words. I know you're young, and I know you got heart, kid, so I'm letting you have a chance here. Letting, as if he has control over him. Maybe he does, and Izuku just doesn't know it. Izuku grits his teeth.
Go on.
You did good back there at the warehouse. You took those criminals down as efficiently and effectively as possible, while also prioritizing the victim's safety. Not many very pros do that. As you pointed out a few nights ago, you have a lot of skill and potential. Unfortunately, not all people agree. There are, for lack of a better word, pissed at your mere existence. I'm stuck between feeling giddy over your praise and being offended over that last part. Izuku rolls his eyes.
I know, they're jealous of me. What are you getting at?
You can turn yourself in, and before you argue, hear me out. This will give you a few advantages in courts, and you'll get off easier with less charges than you would have any other way. He tilts his head, but not in a curious way, more of in a, I'm going to figure you out sort of way. You'll be given some time to tie up any loose ends as Rabbit, and then you'll hang up the costume for good. You're still a kid, so giving up now while you've still got that as an excuse is in your best interest. Trust me.
I'm finding it hard to trust anyone right now, so that's a hard no.
You trust Tsukauchi, and he trusts me. He looks slightly annoyed when he says this, and Izuku files that detail away for later. If you don't believe what I'm saying now, believe him. You have his phone number, right? Ask him yourself. Izuku swipes a hand over his sweaty face, fatigue beginning to take over.
I only read half of what he sends me. I don't speak his language.
The boy relishes in the brief look of utter confusion on Eraserhead's face, only for it to be replaced by irritation. My advice to you is to turn yourself in. We can work things out for you in the long run, legally speaking. It'll be easier for you and everyone else.
I don't think it's that easy, but go off.
You don't seem to have any better plans, or you would have put them into motion by now. Izuku balks at being called out.
Harassing me when I haven't even done anything? You should be ashamed, Eraserhead. I have literally done nothing wrong ever in my entire life.
The underground hero ignores him and ignores him, getting right back to business. 1 week. You have 1 week to make a decision.
Or what?
Damn him. Izuku is curious.
What are you going to do if I decide not to take it?
I won't be the one doing anything, but you'll wish you listened to me the first time. Consider this a warning. Okay, that's fucking ominous. That's kind of infuriating, since it's not really an answer to his question. Racerhead is walking away, hands in his pockets, heading back towards the warehouse. Don't disappoint me, kid. I know you're smart. We can help you get out of this. The boy frowns at the tired tone. At the kind of sad way the man says it, he doesn't know what it means. He doesn't know what any of this means. His mouth opens before he can stop it.
Hey, can I get an autograph?
But the hero's already gone, disappearing into the forest, and Izuku sighs to himself. The bastard probably wouldn't have given him one anyway, being underground and all that. Tilting his head up, he glances at the stars above one last time and forces himself up. He can't wait around when it comes to dealing with a gunshot wound. He does not want to bleed out the night before he has to go to the mall with Kajan. Thank you very much. Infections aren't very festive to have either. His head is reeling. He's happy that the mission was successful, so that he can collect his money when he gets the chance at the club, but he's also very much wounded, and now he has to worry about what Eraserhead said to him, his ultimatum. Suku doesn't know what to think at the moment. He doesn't know if he can even think with the bullet lodged in his abdomen. The worst part, though, is that Izuku can't tell if the underground hero had been lying to him when he said he'd help him. Hello, my ghouls! So, I'm back after 3 months. So sorry that all of that happened. First off, I had to finish up my school and exams, which was literally till the last day of school, so I couldn't really do anything during that. And literally before all of that, I actually had a lot of shit going on, a lot of mental health problems, and I won't lie to you, one of my animals did die, as well as to anyone who listens to K-pop knows that Moonbin from Astro died as well. So that kind of took me out for a really long time, but I have been trying to process myself through it. I will say it has not been going well. But this was a fun chapter, and I can't wait to read the next ones. I will be posting a lot more frequently until September, because then I start school again. And then I will need to start school again. Yes, but I'm sorry that I've been gone for so long. I did not mean to be gone for this long, if I'm being honest. I actually meant to post last month. So, I actually meant to start posting in June, I'm not gonna lie, but that didn't work out. And then I was like, okay, July 1st, I'll post July 1st. And then that didn't work out, and then I had summer school. Not really summer school, but just some curriculars that I needed to do now because I won't have time to do them in any other time during my schedule in school. So, yeah. I had to do them all of July, and it only ended like a couple days ago. So, here I am, and I'm so sorry that I've been gone for so long. I will attempt to not be gone for so long. I actually got a new dog. So now I have 2 dogs. One of them is currently sleeping on my bed. You can probably find a photo here because I'm taking photos of this little man right now. He is so adorable. Oh my god. I love him so much. This is the one that I got back in March, and then we got a new one she is probably up on the screen. And yeah. So, please drink some water, have some food, make sure you're doing the daily tests that you need to. Clean up a little bit, honestly. I need to clean up. I'm gonna be cleaning up very soon. After I finish editing, I'll be cleaning up. So, you clean up, I'll clean up, we have water, we eat, we do everything that a normal human does, make sure to have a shower, and I will see you later, next time, in the morning and the afternoon. I hope you have a good morning, a good night, a good evening, a good afternoon, a good day, a good night, a good 24 hours. I'll see you later, my ghouls. Bye!